Welcome to the Monday Monologue, and check out this 300B amp we're working on. Now, I didn't build this chassis, and if you want to critique it, someone else built it and sent it to me for me to build this with. I think it looks really cool, but this is an example of what my 300B amps are going to be looking like going forward in this style. And I think I've talked to you guys about how with testing and listening, I'm really sold that for a 300B tube, you need some of these ISO Tango FC30 transformers that I've tried to do them with lower cost, lower budget transformers, and every time I'm just disappointed with what they sound like. Now the 2A3 on the other hand seems to be a more forgiving tube as far as the transformers, and like those Haybooers and those little small Tango transformers, the little ISO FC12s, they sound great with a 2A3. With a 300B, I don't know what, whether it's the higher amperage or what's going on, but they really need a high-end transformer. And so I'm giving up on this whole idea of doing like a budget 300B kind of a thing, that we're going to be doing them like this with this custom wound power transformer that ISO did for me, one of their chokes. Going to be using the FC30 3.5 transformers, and then we're going to be doing like various species of wood surrounds with a thick aluminum top plate that's been anodized, and some of them may be clear anodized, might look better with the kind of wood. I like this black anodizing with the silver trim. I think really sets it off and looks nice. But they could also be done with the gold trim, depending again on the species of wood. And I'm collecting the stuff to be able to start doing the woodworking in-house too, because I just feel like that I hate outsourcing stuff. Every time I do, I'm disappointed. And I've been struggling with finding folks that have woodworking skills that are reliable and reasonable. I mean, I guess it's pick one. If they're reasonably priced, they're not reliable. And if they're reliable, they're really expensive. And I don't want the price to go through the roof making a nice looking amplifier. But I feel like it needs to be kind of an upscale thing if we're going to be investing all this money in this expensive iron, which it is expensive. I mean, I'd have to sit down and do the math, but it's over $2,000 just for the iron. And so the amp's not going to be cheap. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of show you this amp that I'm working on, and we're going to do a little series about how the insides have changed. And I've really been kind of focused too on dealing with getting the plans and stuff on my new listing room done. I've been working on my digital setup after getting that Mishi Q5 transport DAC and hearing how great just even Red Book CDs can sound if it's done in the right device. It spurred me on to start working on my streaming side of my whole system. And I know some of you guys, that's all you do is stream, and I've tried some of the lower end kind of solutions in the past and have never been happy with them. I've tried several different topping DACs. I've tried a Blue Sound Node. I tried one of the lower end Eversolos, that sort of stuff. It just never was happy with how it sounded. Compared to my vinyl, it just wasn't even close. And it wasn't that it was like critically listening detail kind of a thing. It just wasn't musical, and it wasn't enjoyable to listen to me. And so basically I was just using streaming to see if I liked some particular album or some particular artist, and then I'd go buy the vinyl. And now I can buy the CD, which is a whole lot cheaper, and it opens up the catalog of available music like immensely. Because there's a lot of music that's on CD that is not available on vinyl. But now I finally got some streaming that sounds pretty good. And while it's still not as good as a direct CD put in my Q5, it's musical and I can definitely enjoy listening to it. And I'm sure in the future we'll be, trying some different stuff, but this sounds really good. And it's a Roon-based system. I'm going to do a video just kind of going over what I've done and, what I like about it, why I'm going to be using Roon, and there may be, again, some tweaks to the endpoints and that kind of thing, but I found some off-the-shelf stuff that's fairly reasonably priced. It's actually less than I've paid for some of the stuff that I've bought in the past. And while Roon does add an expense, it's a monthly cost, or it's pretty expensive to buy a lifetime thing. I think it's like $800 now, but I may end up just pulling the trigger on that and just being done with having a monthly fee for that. I'll have to sit down and do the math. But anyway, we'll do that soon. So for you streaming folks, we're going to put some streaming content on here. And unfortunately, I've been so busy with this other stuff that I haven't had time to listen to those ELEKit amps or those preamps or doing any of that other stuff. I'm still playing around with my listening room that I currently have that's behind me in the next room. And I went from, if you've been following this journey, I had the room sounding pretty good, I thought. And then I screwed it up by putting those high-back home theater chairs in the room. That just ruined the sound. And so got them stored down in the storage room next door, and then I've got the new love seat kind of fabric combo ottoman thing, and that really brought the room back to life. And just so that I wasn't changing too many things at once, I went back to the quad speakers and put them on some decent stands that were full of sand, so I was using the same speakers that I've been listening to for years. And so I set those up in the room with this love seat, and it was sounding pretty good. And it was a huge improvement over where I was at with those home theater chairs. And last night I swapped the quad S5 floor standers back in and played around with positioning for a few hours of going in and out from the walls and, the width of the speakers in relation to the listening position. And I'm sitting a little closer to the speakers than I was. I've moved the couch up a little bit. And I think with this less than ideal room, being a little closer to the speakers gives a little more of that near field sound. I mean, still wouldn't call it near field, but it's closer to near field than I was trying to do. And I realized in this room, I can't put a lot of distance between me and the speakers, because then you start hearing all the problems with the room. So moving a little closer to the speakers, got the speakers, a foot and a half out from the wall. I've tried pulling them out even more. These speakers are crazy sensitive to how far they are from that back wall. And so when you pull them out into the room too far, the bass just disappears. And that's probably something with the room and the room nodes more than the actual speakers. But you got to work with what you've got. And so I finally found a toe-in and positioning of the speakers in the room that really, really sound good. And the final trick was using the height adjustment on those ISO pucks. And obviously you can do the same thing by putting shims on your speakers. I'm not saying you got to spend the money on that, but it made it real easy just to go over to the speakers, turn each one of the pucks a half turn to raise the back up a little bit. And I think with that ribbon tweeter and that the fact that these S5 speakers are their tallest speaker, and it kind of gets that ribbon tweeter up higher in relation to your sitting position, that tilting them forward just a little bit brings that tweeter into, and I'm talking just, that much tilted in the back. It brought the angle of the tweeter into the sweet spot of your ears while you're sitting. And yeah, it sounds nice. I could totally live with this, and I can totally enjoy listening to music. It's not as bass heavy as I would like for certain kinds of music, and I realized that doing something like bringing those Gershwin speakers back into the room that really go down to like 20 hertz is probably going to excite all these bass nodes in the room and just not sound good. So we're saving those for the new listening room that's designed to be able to handle bass speakers like those. And so that's one of the things that I think that if you look at the specs on a lot of speakers that are manufactured, a lot of them stop at 40 hertz or 45 hertz. And even speakers with some pretty big drivers, like you look at some of those Klipsch Heritage speakers and they go down to 40 hertz. Those big Chorus 2s or Chorus 1s, I had the Chorus 1s. Those Chorus speakers only went down to 40 hertz. And I think the reason they do that is they realize that most of the rooms that people are putting these speakers into are not going to be able to handle low frequencies below that and are going to sound bad, and the people are going to want to return the speakers. And again, there's not a lot of speakers out there that really dip down into the low frequencies, and it's why a lot of people, I think, struggle with getting a sub integrated into their system and adjusting it and all that stuff, is that when you bring those really low frequencies that are in music, don't get me wrong, they're in the music and they should be heard and felt. But when you bring that into the equation of a room that was designed for a tea party and watching TV and not listening to music, that all sorts of bad stuff starts happening. And that's why, again, I think people really struggle with getting, I know I have, with getting a subwoofer to sound good, is that the room just can't handle it. So, yeah, I'm going to deal with the low frequencies in this room by just not reproducing them. I think these Quad 5s go just under 40 hertz, which the room seems to be able to handle. It's a little boomy, but it's nothing like it was when I put those Gershwin speakers in the room, or when I've put a sub in that room. I've tried bringing my sub and putting that I use. I've got a sub I use downstairs because I've got these little tiny speakers and it's turned down real low. But when I've taken that sub up into that room, yeah, crazy stuff starts happening. And so we're just going to live with what we can live with in that room, with the way it is. And I'm not interested, I did try one of those bass traps. Don't waste your money. They don't work. And honestly, everything I've read about trying to do bass frequency absorption, and I'm not talking about like at 100 hertz, I'm talking about this really low bass frequency stuff, that you need a bass trap that's like 4 feet thick. And these little small things that you can put in a corner, some of them are only like that wide, little triangle pieces of foam. Those are a total waste of money. And then I went to GIK, and they have a, second scratch and dent, whatever you want to call it, kind of area where they've got some pre-made stuff that you can just pick through. And I bought one of their corner bass traps, put it in the room. Doesn't matter how do I line it, put it up, down, on the wall. It did absolutely nothing. And so, yeah, don't think that you can fix bass frequency response just sticking a little, 18 by 18 inch triangle thing in the corner of the room. That's not going to absorb those low frequencies. And that's why I'm spending so much time on designing this new listening room so that the room itself deals with the low frequencies. Because doing it after the fact is almost a waste of time. Or it's just exponentially more expensive when you start having to buy these membrane type bass absorbers that are tunable and figuring out where to put them and, all of that stuff. Stuff's complicated enough with having trying to figure that out, right? So, anyway, I've been staying busy with this stuff, and I'm looking forward to going to Capital Audio Fest this fall. That should be another fun show. I'm going to skip the Texas show just for a variety of reasons. And yeah, it's been a fun year. I need to get some of these projects like this finished up, get them off my plate. I've got a pair of 300B monoblocks that I've got promised that I swear I'm going to start working on those after I finish this. And one viewer wrote me and it's like, I thought you'd stop making stuff. It's like, nope, I'm still making stuff. It just, gotten a little behind. But honestly, things like this take so much more mental energy and time to figure out a new layout and all that stuff over doing something that, like my phono preamps, I can build those pretty quick now. And I've got a 2A3 amp with the Habu around that's almost half done. I've got several of the EL34 chassis that are all, drilled out, ready to go. So anyway, don't want to belabor that point. But just so you folks that may be interested in some cool skunky amps, I'm still doing stuff. And yeah, hope you'll watch the video about my digital stuff. I think that was really enlightening and turned out really cool. And it's just opened up a whole new world of the interface with Roon, to me, is worth the price of admission. It's so much better than even the native Tidal or Qobuz apps or Blue Sound or any of that stuff. It's just the way it integrates everything into one platform is really cool. Anyway, that's about it for this week. I'm going to put a link in the description for some new music to try. And I may have mentioned this before. Wait till about 10 o'clock at night when the house is empty and you can turn the lights down low to listen to it. It's some really cool stuff. And I'll put their name up here. And then link is in the description. Go check that out. So anyway, thanks for watching my videos. If you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. Thanks to you Patreon supporters, members, people that buy my gear, that make donations to the channel, all that stuff that helps support Skunky Designs. And we will see you next week for the Monday Monologue.